All right, welcome everybody to our session today in Personal Productivity Club. I thought it would be fun for us to, on occasion, talk to technologists and entrepreneurs who might be doing some really fun stuff in the world. And I have been using this application, rize.io, for quite some time. And I thought it would be really fun to have Macgill, who is the CEO and founder, one of the co-founders of rize.io, to come and talk to us about using time tracking to really improve our focus and productivity. And I know that's something that we here in Personal Productivity Club are all really hyper focused on, is being more focused and more productive and really understanding what productivity is. And I think Macgill brings an interesting insight into this because his software is tracking what you're doing on your desktops. And that is a rich source of data. And so without further ado, Macgill, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and excited to talk with all you today. For today I have, it's pretty open-ended and flexible. I thought I'd start talking a little bit about, our philosophy at Rise and around productivity. I'm sure, as I told Ray, like we're all productivity nerds, obviously. That's part of the reason we started Rise. And so I'll just cover how we think about things and would love any questions. I can also then probably just show a little bit of the tool and demo a little bit of how we've implemented Rise, how we've implemented this philosophy in the app. And I think a lot of what I'll say, I imagine will resonate with all of you. I'll probably, it might not be stuff that you don't already know. I imagine I might even learn some stuff today because you all are the experts as well. With that, I can kind of get started. Cool. So we've started, first I'll just tell you a little bit about Rise. I mean, Rise is an automated time tracker. It's built for personal productivity. So you guys are really the audience. When we started Rise, it was about 5 years ago. And we basically, my co-founders and I we very into quantified self. We're very passionate about working. We tracked a lot of things in our life, like sleep and fitness. But work was really important to us, and we realized that we had really no insight into how we work and how much we were working. And we looked for a tool, and it just didn't exist. And so we decided to build it. And that's really what Rise has become. Now, Rise is a automated time tracker for your desktop. So it works on macOS and Windows. And it automatically tracks the apps and websites that you use and then pulls out a lot of really cool, deep productivity metrics, like time worked, focus time. And at the same time, it provides you with these like light little productivity nudges to improve your focus, improve your work efficiency, and to basically help you work more productively and build better work habits, I'd say in general. So that includes like taking breaks, avoiding overworking. As I'll get into, with our philosophy, being productive is definitely, and Rise is definitely not about more. It's about finding the right balance of working efficiently. And so taking a step back, the philosophy that we have at Rise is really that we should treat productivity like fitness, and we should think about it like fitness or health, and that there's a lot of important parallels there. So first off, and that applies to productivity and focus as well. Like I don't think a lot of people think of productivity that way, but I think it is the best analogy. It's almost like a health metric. So one of the first steps with just your health, if you want to improve it, is making sure that you actually have data insights. Like you can't actually improve anything if you don't have the data to understand the baseline, or even understand what to improve, right? And how you're spending that time. And so we've seen this massive fitness revolution in the last 20 years with wearables. Like I wear Whoop, but Apple Watch is a big one. And it's actually improved the health and fitness of like millions of people, just by providing that insights, and then B, also those small nudges. Like a great example is the Apple Watch with I think we're probably familiar with the bands to complete your steps. I think they've proven that that's actually helped like millions of people lose weight, just because there's these small little changes that get people out And they're more cognizant if they haven't taken steps that day, and also setting those small goals and really improve your health and fitness. And so the first step as well, we think with fitness is and health is you need that baseline. Like you need to understand you know, where you're starting and where you're active to hold yourself accountable and then also to improve. I think the other comparison that we have with productivity with health is that there's no one size fits all. So there's no, you know, there's everyone has their own baseline and metrics, and what works for some people might not work for others. So we see this a lot in like dietary fitness or with blood levels or with heart rate. Like some people just naturally have a higher heart rate or a lower heart rate. And so you can't just say that you want your resting heart rate to be 40 because that doesn't apply to everyone. There's differences in people. And so productivity is really similar. And that's why there's so many different productivity methodologies out there, I think, because some work, they work really well for some people, not others. And so once you have the data, you can actually start to test those different methodologies and understand what actually works better for you. Are you someone who works better with focus in the mornings or the afternoons? Do you work better in 45-minute blocks or 25-minute blocks? Do you need more longer breaks or fewer shorter breaks, right? These are all things that really vary across, and there's really no one size fits all. And the last bit I think is, it's really important to review your productivity just like you would your health on an ongoing basis, because it also changes over time. Like we're constantly evolving, just like there's no one size fit all. It's true that we're always changing and evolving, and so it's really important to just keep tabs on, exactly where you are in what state, because these things do change as your work change, as your mental state changes, as your even your physical location changes. That's actually a big boost that we saw with Rise, and why we think it's important now is because work is changing so dramatically. Like we launched Rise during COVID, and so the big change there was we had everyone was a much higher percentage of people were working from home. And that's a completely different way of working than when you're working in the office. And so managing that transition, having that insight on how am I spending my time? Am I spending it correctly? Am I being efficient with it? Like, am I getting my focus time? Was really helpful to a lot of people. And then at the end of the talk, I can talk about some of the questions we have, but I think with AI right now, we're going through another dramatic change. And there's all these amazing tools and AI agents, but understanding how to manage them and how to integrate them into your daily process so that they're actually net positives to your productivity is really interesting. And I think it's another massive transformation that we're going through in the productivity space. So yeah, that's really like at a high level. And maybe I can share Rise, like my screen, and kind of walk through Rise and talk about sort of how it works at a high level and how we've tried to implement that philosophy in the product. And then maybe open it up for questions, or should we take some questions now before that?
If anybody does have any burning desire questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. But I say pull up Rise and show folks what Rise is all about, because I think this will help fill in some gaps.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So can everybody see my screen? Awesome. All right. So Rise at its core, as I mentioned, is a time tracker. We sit on your desktop and track the apps and websites that you're doing, the active window. We only track the metadata. So we only track like the app, URL, window title. We actually never track any of the content of your screen. But from this metadata, this would essentially be, if we're comparing it to like a fitness app, like a Whoop or a Ring, this would be your heart rate, right? And we take that activity stream and we run a lot of analysis on it. So the first thing we do is we use AI to auto categorize that time. In these time slots are as short as 15 seconds. We auto categorize that into a work category, or I guess a time category. Those time categories represent higher level types of work. So that's things like video conferencing, code, documenting. And from there, we construct a timeline of your day. So you can see this here in my activity column. I can see exactly when I was active, and then you can hover for more details. So like this, starting around noon today, I was doing customer support. I can see that breakdown by apps and websites and by category. And we're super customizable. So these categories are fully customizable. You can change these rules. And it's fully automated. Like the AI is going to auto categorize this for you, but then you can always tweak it and customize it to both your role and the category types of work that you're interested in. Once we do that and we have your timeline, we actually then pull out a ton of really, really cool productivity metrics. So you can see those in the daily summary here. So a big one is work hours. So Rise is going to detect how many hours you've actually been working on the computer, and you can set targets there. So today I have a target of around 6. Those are also customizable, and what's cool is Rise will kind of nudge you throughout the day on, how close you are to that target once you've hit that target. And then we'll also give you nudges if you are starting to really exceed that target. Because, we saw this, especially if you work from home. I know I run into this, but overworking is a major issue. And, again, comparing that to fitness, it's like if you're trying to run a marathon every day, you're wearing out your body. If you're trying to get 10, 12 hours of focus time or 10, 12, 14 hours of work, you're going to run yourself down. So finding that balance is really important. It's really a core pillar of Rise. The other aspect that's really cool is this breakdown of sessions. So sessions are basically fall into three types. Focus, which is like deep work, meetings, collaboration like this, and breaks. This has been really influenced by Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. Focus is a massive value prop in Rise. It's another thing that, as Cal Newport talks about, it's becoming harder and harder to focus for so many reasons. I think remote work has made it more difficult, but also our phones, social media, even our work apps these days are actually built for engagement. So like Slack and email, they're built to keep your attention. And so the cost of that is our focus, and it's getting harder and harder to get deep work. And I would say focus, again, like fitness, is a skill that you can build up. And it's one of the ways that Rise has most dramatically impacted the way I work. And I can talk a little bit about how it's influenced me at the end. Meetings, again, are super important, but they tend to be real detractors. They often come at the expense of deep work. So monitoring how many meetings you're in when you're in meetings can be really important. With the focus, Rise will auto detect when you're focused. We do have a timer that you can start focus sessions, and it's really cool. We have we have these cool, you can start focus music, which is really cool. We have these great channels. This can be really helpful for getting focused on. I love them. And we hope to integrate with Brain FM as well soon. But we also give you focus scores. So tracking the quality of your focus is also really important. And you can rate these focus sessions, and Rise will learn and get better at understanding when you're focused and the quality of that focus. Meetings. The other aspect here is breaks. So breaks are another massive pillar of Rise. It's around working sustainably. Rise will automatically nudge you when it's time to take a break. You can set those thresholds. Once you start a break, it will block out the screen if you want it to. Breaks are really important for just staying refreshed throughout the day. I personally, again, was someone who sit at the computer. I'd work like 10 hours straight and then end my day, and I was just feeling exhausted. And one of the main things I've really built in is these short breaks throughout the day that just really keep my energy levels up. And they're actually really good for creativity as well. So this is, those are the high-level productivity metrics. We also have clients, projects, and tasks. So if the productivity metrics are sort of how you work and how productive you're being, what types of work you're doing, clients, projects, and tasks are very much around your work output. What are you working on? And this is, I was telling Ray earlier, this is sort of a newer area that we're just delving into. We're building on what we've built with Rise. And so our vision with Rise is for everything to just automatically track completely. And so we have that, I think, with a lot of the productivity features, but we really want to also build that with tracking what tasks on your work output, because that opens up as well another massive aspect of productivity, which is understanding what you've been working on so you can better predict how long tasks did take, but also how long they will take in the future. And so that's really Rise at a high level. You can set these projects and tasks to track automatically. And then we also have really high level views as well, where you can dig in to all these stats on week, month level. You can go to the trends as well to see how you've been tracking with some of these things like focus, meetings, and breaks over time. We'll send you a weekly in-depth productivity assessment so you can judge sort of how what you've been working on and how it compares to previous weeks. And we do have a goals feature as well, which you can sort of set up for setting some of those time or productivity goals that you're working on too. So that is, yeah, I ran through everything sort of at a very high level. But that's generally how it works. And I think, as you can see, Rise is really we're basically trying to implement our philosophy, the deep work philosophy and mentality into this app, providing these little nudges as we work, and providing that data baseline so you can keep referring back to whether you're improving or not, and being cognizant about your productivity health, and focus sort of health. We like to think about it.
Macgill, can you show us you have kind of the productivity coach component in here. Can you show that a little bit to us?
Yes. So the coach is I will say this is an area that we're need some improvement on, but we have some big improvements planned. But the coach, basically our concept with the coach is right now we provide a lot of these nudges throughout the day and this higher level data, but it's still on you to go in and pull out insights from that. So with the coach, I mean, there's a few aspects to the coach. The coach will do things like give you nudges if we have a distraction blocker to give you nudges that you're getting off track in a focus session, for example. But with these insights the insights tab in the coach, we want to actually pull out these insights for you so you can actually catch things. So the coach can catch trends that are either good or bad or alarming, so that you don't have to go in and look for them. So this was one recent one I got, which is around, my work hours actually decreasing compared to the previous month, right? So far this July, which is, I think, a good thing because June was a bit of a hectic month. And then it also links to some resources there. But this insight tab is we want to make this even more actionable, I'd say, and pull in more resources. And so, yeah, that's definitely on the roadmap. I think the other thing we've seen with the insights is we want to build them more into the app itself, so that you can see them more naturally as you're just using the app rather than having a separate tab. But it's still been super helpful. We'll provide you an insight weekly and then one each day, because you get this email at the end of the day showing how you spent your time. So yeah, that's been really helpful too.
Yeah, because I can see the benefit of having this, say, tie to your goals.
Yeah.
So the coach kind of understands that, hey, you're working 7% less in July is actually toward your minimizing your work hours. And so I can see that being really beneficial. I know that I read the email every day, and I find the weekly insight email to be really powerful as well because it's giving me some more data that I wouldn't otherwise have access to. And as a quantified selfer, I love the extra data in that way. And are you able to like export any of this data in a format that would be useful to folks?
Definitely. Yeah. So we have an API. If you guys, I don't know if anyone's technical, but we have an API and we have webhooks. So with the API, you can write scripts to query all of your own data. You can, write, yeah, you can, if you're technical, you can really dig into the API. You can do a lot of cool stuff there. Webhooks as well. So that webhooks are basically actions triggered in Rise can get sent to another URL so that you can handle those events. So I have one here with a Zapier webhook, but you can see all these are you can run all these events when a client has created project task, when you started or stopped the session timer, and when you create time entries. So you can do cool stuff there. And then we also have integrations. So we just launched the ClickUp integration, which is really cool. So you can integrate your tasks and have Rise sort of auto tag time, and it will post it back to ClickUp. But we also have Zapier integration, which basically is a way to use the API if you're a little bit less technical. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with Zapier. So you can do a ton of really fun stuff there. Like if you start a focus session or if Rise detects you're in focus, switch your Slack status to do not disturb, start playing XYZ on Spotify or start Brain FM or something like that. So there's a lot of like really creative ways you can work with the product that way, and more to come.
And then under data export, you're capable of exporting that data into, say, a CSV or a JSON file.
Yes, you can export your raw activity, your projects, or your sessions as well to CSV. And you can run, we have people who run all sorts of analysis. We actually have people often using, which is, we've been digging into this use case because we want to build this into the coach, but who have hooked using Zapier, basically pulling out their overall productivity data, automatically sharing that with ChatGPT every day in a project, and then getting trends and feedback that way, and being able to sort of ask questions in query, which is a really cool use case. So actually, I'm going to be setting that up for myself. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do.
Yeah, as you are talking about the idea of integrations, I don't know what you have planned in terms of integrations, but having more of those tools pull that data in, say, like in my example, using Trello and Google Tasks and Asana, being able to pull that data in, being able to do some kind of calculation on it using one of the APIs for one of the generative AI tools, and bringing that data back into here, so the coach can basically give me advice, I think is a really, really powerful next step. And I think that would be really fun for me to be able to see, but I need to see all of that data in Rise. I want it all sucked into Rise in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so I have a bunch of questions, but if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to pop those in the chat or raise your hand, and I'm happy to bring you up to ask Macgill any questions that you have. So I'm going to start with a tactical one, and then we can go up to more high level conversations. And then I'll get to you, Hillary. Hold on one second. So my first question is like really tactical, which is kind of cross-device productivity. And so you are on Mac and Windows, so Mac OS and Windows, and not on mobile devices. And so just speak a little bit about that. And I have multiple computers. Like right now, I'm sitting in front of 7 desktop machines. I have 3 servers. Those don't need to be tracked, but I have Rise on those other devices. How is Rise looking at the various tools to do that kind of calculation?
Okay, so first I'll start with mobile. Mobile is like I would say multi-device, starting with mobile and tablet. So we are only desktop right now, which is Mac OS and Windows. Mobile and tablet are both 100% on our roadmap because I think it's a huge area that we really feel we're missing. It's like we want to build that. I think for us, we're a small team, and we have pretty high bars for quality for ourselves. And I think we just want to make sure that we have a strong foundation on the desktop app side before we extend ourselves to mobile. But I wish we had it now. It's a major area that we're missing, and we've had users tell us like we've eliminated distraction on the computer, but then they're opening up their phone and getting distracted there, and just having that window into of what are you tracking your time on your mobile, like what is the screen time? That'd be really important. So that is coming, but we don't have that yet. In terms of multi desktops, we do support that, and you can use them synchronously at the same time. What's great is Rise will not double track any of your focus time or work hours or metrics. It kind of just, even if you're using them simultaneously, it'll feed all into the same algorithm. It's able to parse things and understand that you're working across multiple devices with really no issues there. So yeah, you can just install Rise on as many computers as you like, and sign on and sign up. Well, as long as you sign in with the same account, you should be all set.
So it's recognizing the fact that I'm moving my trackpad or mouse as the primary device, and so it knows to basically eliminate the redundancy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it also, if you're, let's say you really are active on two at the same time, it will dedupe that time, so that, your work hours won't say 8 if you were working on two computers. It stays true to the actual amount of time you've been working.
I've noticed that, and I just really appreciated the fact that you all put time and energy into that because I was like, this is not going to be good data,
Yeah.
and it actually has been. So I really appreciate that. So Hillary's asking, do you have any specific examples you can share of what people have said about the software, about Rise, that has benefited their life for the better? What are the true benefits they've had?
Yes. I mean, I'll speak for myself first and foremost. I meant to mention this earlier, but the way Rise has changed the way I work. So I actually have the metrics going back to 2020 from when we were, building this during COVID. And I was working at the time probably 10 to 12 hours a day, wasn't taking many breaks. And how my work has changed is I work probably between you know, I generally shoot for 6 to 8. Before we've just expanded the team here at Rise, and we have a few more team members, which I've noticed has increased my work hours because I'm in a bit more meetings now. When it was just last year, it was only three of us, and so I was really working much closer to like 6 hours a day. And my productivity level was just as high as it was when I was working 10 or 12, maybe if not higher. And I think the key aspect for me was focus, basically prioritizing focus, and paring down. I really moved to picking the top three things I wanted to get done that day, knowing that if I get those top three done in a day, then I've had a successful day. And so by prioritizing focus, I was able to do that just much more efficiently. And then I was also able to fall out of that loop of saying, okay, I had Rise my accountability, which is I've already worked these 6 hours. I've gotten these three tasks done. Or if I got them done in 4 hours, I would just stop that day, because basically I would fall into these other loops, when I think we all do, where we have these endless task lists, and it feels like you're just, even if you finish 12 tasks a day and you've been so productive, if you're not cutting it off at some point, you feel like you still have more to do, or you didn't finish your day fully. So I was definitely on that boat where I was, adding all these tasks and then trying to complete the list every day, even though it was endless. So moving to just trying to do those three and then really, really prioritizing focus time. And Rise helped me because it showed automatically text when I'm focused. It would show me when I'm getting off focused. I could understand like how long these tasks were taking me and what was distracting me. Um, and basically, I was able to really, really improve my focus. So now I generally actually, again, we added the team, so I've had a bit more meetings, but before I was really shooting for like 4 hours of focus time a day. And then I'm not really as concerned with work hours anymore, because I know that if I just get those 4 hours of focus time, then I'll be able to get everything done that I wanted to. So that's how it's really impacted me. It's made me much more efficient. I can get more done in a shorter period of time, which ultimately means I have more time to, spend with my family and friends and girlfriend. And so that's really what life is all about. The other aspect that's really helped me is taking breaks. I think I mentioned this, but I was really not someone who took many breaks. I'm a coder by trade, and so I would sit down and just start developing, and like 6 hours would pass and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't stood up at all. This is super unhealthy. And now I really do take breaks. Like we have the built-in break nudges, there'll be those notifications. And I take them, I step away from the computer. It was a full screen break mode. And I noticed that my energy levels when I end the day are just so much higher. Those taking those little breaks has been massively important. Um, and I'd say these are kind of recurring themes for our users. focus has been a massive one. We have a lot of users with ADHD. And so Rise is really, really, really helpful. If you have ADHD, for just keeping you on track and understanding where you're spending your time. Um, and I would argue that we're all sort of verging on ADHD now, as I mentioned, with our phones and these workouts, like our attention spans are shrinking and shrinking. So we're sort of trying to help fight that trend.
I think that's great. So just to like put a fine point on this for anybody, my everyone here in who's watching right now knows my opinions on the overdiagnosis of ADHD, but we all have attentional deficits, and so our goal is to be able to work against those attentional deficits where they are, and I think Rise does a really good job of that for me. So like just like on as a user, and I've been using it from almost the very beginning. I think Macgill. I've had it for a very long time. You could probably look in the account when I first created it. But I was so appreciative of the fact that it was giving me this kind of data and flowing it back to me. And so I've found that the distraction kind of blocker is pretty accurate now for me. Like it knows what I'm doing. I still dismiss it and do what I want, but but I at least I know that I'm doing it, so I can like set a timer. I have a little timer by my on my desk, and I can just say like, okay, 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go back to what I was actually going to do, which has been really really helpful. But that kind of distraction notification has been really helpful, and I will say that the reports, Hillary, have been just super super helpful for me because as most of you also know, I've been tracking my time manually for 25 plus years. So I literally have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets that have my time, exactly what I've done in roughly about 15-minute increments over 26, 27 years now, actually, if I do the calculation right. So, I have all of this data that I'm tracking manually, and now to see Rise doing most of that pretty accurately without me having to do it, down to, the almost minute level has been actually really helpful for me. And that one, it means that at some point I can relinquish my very heavy control over tracking time to a tool that I feel like I can trust. And two, that it will be efficacious in the reporting function, right? I really want to be able to slice and dice that data, and being able to do that analysis and synthesis for me is really important. And Stacy, you have a question. I'm going to do this.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. You got it? Yep.
Um, so I do a lot of work on the computer, but it's offline because I'm a writer. So, uh, can Rise track that offline work? Like if I'm working on a program like Word or something?
Yes. So like as long as you are connected to the internet, Rise can track it. So basically Rise sits at the OS level. So it's on the Mac, it's on Mac OS. So that's what's great is we'll track all your apps and websites. So we get a really complete picture. There's a lot of time trackers that just track in the browser. So they're just tracking URLs. It's just not complete. And actually that's where a lot of yeah. So the short answer is yes, we will. And I didn't get too much into how you can create custom categories that way, but it can get really really granular in how Rise tracks as well, and you can set that up. It's definitely I would say, I mean, not to brag, but I think we're probably the most granular and customizable time tracker out there, and hopefully the most automated as well.
I would say like go ahead, Stacy. Go ahead.
Just the second question was, if I'm on a phone call with a client, can I edit this and say phone call with client?
Definitely. So if it's not a Zoom, like an actual on a phone, right?
Right.
Yeah, you can. This is why we need the mobile app first off, because at Rise, our real vision is to make everything automated. Like we don't want you to have to change anything. You can just come in here and get your stats. So right now, though, we do allow you. I mean, of course, you can manually add time. So if let's say from 10 to 11 you were on a call, it's super easy to add that time. You can just drag and drop, select add override, and you can say like meeting or phone call, in-person meeting, and then it's going to automatically add that time immediately.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We actually have a lot of writers who use Rise. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ali Abdaal, but he's a big productivity influencer, and he's been actually we worked with him on promoting Rise, and he ended up becoming a investor in the company. And he used Rise when he was writing his book, and he said it was immensely helpful. So
Actually, Feel Good Productivity is our productivity book group reading selection that's upcoming, everybody. So if you want to book club, go ahead and do that. Hillary is asking, how sophisticated is the software detecting when there is a pause in your work? For example, thinking versus reading versus stepping away from the computer.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So Rise will automatically detect when you go idle. So basically, what Rise is going to stop tracking after 5 minutes of inactivity. So that means no mouse movements or keyboard inputs. And then if you come back, within a certain period of time, it's going to automatically detect that that was a break. So that's how I take breaks. Sometimes I'll take them through manually start them, but I often just step away from a computer, go for a walk, come back, and Rise is going to automatically stop tracking and then pick up tracking when I come back. And then that's done that through idle. There is a caveat here where you can set certain categories to be basically to continue tracking even if you go idle. And there will be some defaults there, but generally you'll want to do that with things like entertainment or video conferencing, because as you probably see, like if you're in a Zoom, your computer would go idle quite a bit because you're sitting watching the screen. And so you can set it up to not stop tracking if you go idle. For things like, yeah, when you're in a Zoom or stuff like that. And that's all done by category. The other thing is when you put your computer to sleep, obviously, or shut it down, it's going to stop tracking as well.
And something that I do, Hillary, is I will go into my calendar and put in brainstorming into the calendar so that Rise then picks that up as basically a category of what I'm actually doing. And so and I don't use the break function, the manual break function. I just stop using my device and it just picks it up automatically. So that's been pretty accurate for me, and I'll sometimes adjust it because I took a break but then I came back and I woke the computer, but I'm now looking at something, I'm reading something, and I have to read a lot of long boring documents for work. And so if I'm reading a long boring document, it sometimes will go ahead and start to dim the screen because it's going into sleep mode, and I'll just have to wiggle it again and that wake it up. But yeah, or I'll be on my iPad reading a document, and so I'll have to manually put that into Rise because Rise is not seeing my iPad; it's seeing the desktop not moving. So that's always just a little adjustment there, but it'll get there. I had a couple of notes here, so if you all can continue thinking and asking questions, but I have more thoughts for or questions for Macgill here. So I like the sport analogy. I think that this is really important for us all to kind of consider if we think about. So I have a different perspective on kind of the fitnesses, like biological fitnesses, and how they fit into productivity as its own set of things. There are kind of 7 biological fitnesses, from nutrition to sleep to rejuvenation and so on and so forth. But I like the kind of flywheel effect that you talk about here, which is we go from knowledge of productivity, knowledge of our time management skills. It then bleeds into training, potentially, or well, definitely rest and recovery and nutrition, all the other pieces there. But then there's competition, right? You might have a sport where you compete, you run a marathon, you do some kind of competitive analysis of your work, and then there's awards and recognition. And I feel like there's a value in what Rise is capable of doing going into the future if it kind of takes all of the elements of sport and puts it into the app, and not just I mean, it's superficial to say gamification, but it's more important to just make sure all of the aspects of how we understand sport to be, which is it's it's the illusory attitude, right? Any game requires that you purposefully add in these elements to make them engaging. And so I thought that was really interesting. Now, on the question of Cal Newport and deep work, have you given thought to this? Because I know that I've given quite a lot of thought to this, which is that we have a differentiation between what Cal Newport calls deep work and what he calls shallow work.
Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree with the premise. So I'll just put that out there. Deep work and shallow work are defined by his book, I think are misnomers. So if I set that aside, we do have two fundamental blocks of or categories of work, which is flow work, where we think about Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work of getting into the state of flow, getting into in the zone, so to speak. And then we have this focus work where we are focused on task achievement, right? So, and that might be project based or otherwise. And I'm just curious if you've given some thought to the fact that I need to be in focus for flow, and I need to be in focus for action, actionability, kind of task achievement. And how does Rise kind of think about as a company? How do you think about those two different things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, I mean, the way that we've actually approached that is, I'd say, even a little bit different. So we would treat both of those scenarios as focus work in the app. We do have a concept of shallow work, and that is essentially what other is, which I didn't really jump into. So other is sort of like work time that you weren't in focus meetings or breaks. And essentially that means you are in shallow work. And so that is often that if you see a high amount of other, it means you're not getting into focus or flow to complete tasks. And that normally means you're in, we consider shallow work things like email, messaging, like communication stuff. Sometimes email can be focused, but often the messaging apps in general are what we would consider shallow work, where basically we find that that is another major major block to getting focus time is people, they need to write a doc, right? But they keep getting messages from Slack, or they keep opening WhatsApp, or they keep opening iMessage, and you can see this in their activity. And so you get these like massive chunks of where there's no focus, you weren't in a break, you're just sitting on the computer jumping between Slack and the doc, right? Or Slack and your coding IDE, because you weren't actually able to get into the other way this shows up is if you have a bunch of categories. And so like you're jumping across a bunch of different things, like that will also prevent focus from being detected. And that shows up as other work. So like we know that you're working, but like you weren't in a meeting and you weren't on a break, and we weren't able to detect that you were actually like, you know, again, it's why we don't use D work. It's like what you weren't able to focus on one task at hand. And that's, I think, another major way that we're losing focus. I think meetings, and that sort of like, being constantly distracted by these messaging and collaboration tools.
Yeah, and so we can talk about this offline, but just understand that my fundamental belief here is that we have focus is two different things for people, right? It's goal orientation and then attention, right? And so goal orientation is very different, and so you can have something that Cal would, and I know Cal, he's a great person, nothing against Cal,
Yeah.
but the task orientation is not necessarily shallow. If I make a phone call, I usually use the example. I make a phone call, talk to a client, and now I've got $1 million deal, right? Now that can be considered potentially shallow work in some kind of data set. And yet it's not. It's really important work. These little tiny bits, a WhatsApp message between a client can be very vital to move a project forward. It can be really important work, even though it's categorized as kind of other in the system, right? So as you think out the future of Rise, I think it's really important to kind of think through what goal orientation focus looks like and how that ties down to the task achievement level, and then what the attentional capacity is in these focus blocks. I think it's just you're doing a lot of the great work here of doing this analysis, but I can see I know it seems very, very minute, but it becomes really, really powerful to an individual who really cares about their productivity to getting to the right ends, right? Because not all means justify, and we have to kind of think through those pieces.
Totally.
Um,
I'll just add to that. Like, I think that's really valid. And I think that that's something that comes up a lot is sometimes with meetings as well. Like shallow work, or how, if you could, shallow work meetings, they're still important. Like a perfect day doesn't mean 100% or like 70% focus and 30% breaks. Like meetings are a core part of getting work done. Shallow work is it is important. It is important to communicate it. I think it's just important to understand when are we doing it. Like that's why batching messages and batching calls and like those conversations, you know, that shallow work. It's not that it's not valid, but it's you need to make sure that you're not letting it interrupt your focus work. You're doing it in a way that keeps you productive. Like sometimes we do get people saying like, you know, I work a lot with people, and so I want meetings to count as focus. It's like, well, no, that you know, you shouldn't think of like focus as good work and everything else is bad. Meetings are meetings, and it's important to understand they still come at the expense of having that deep work and getting into that flow state, yeah, or focus work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could see, like, for myself, you know, I'm seeing clients, and those are sessions, and so my client sessions are definitely focus work for me, because I'm dealing with a client. Those are different than a meeting where it would be just kind of more generic in that sense. And so there's like a parsing between that for maybe coaches and consultants and other folks who are having this directed work that requires their like. I mean, I have to be really focused in my meetings with my clients, but they're not
Yeah.
focused. Right. They're
Yes.
a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what else did I have here? Oh, have you guys um kind of thought about the Hawthorne effect, which is that back in the 1920s, Western Electric's Hawthorne Works factory noticed that when their employees were being watched or evaluated, they performed differently. And in even your own personal anecdote about how Rise has helped you, that's really the Hawthorne effect, right? It's the fact that you decided to change your behavior based on the fact that you were kind of self-studying. You were aware you were being watched, even though it's really you that that was watching you. And is there really any capacity to maybe work with a university or that kind of thing to kind of really get some data from this to actually understand how that might like validate statistically how this helps people?
Yeah, that's something we actually really, I guess there's 2 points. First, it's something we'd definitely be interested in. Like we definitely we would love to work with, yeah, universities or research labs to try and, you know, Whoop just did this with a bunch of cool health metrics. They were able to prove things like having a really hard workout within 4 hours of sleep reduces sleep, your quality of sleep, for example. And we'd love to do that as well. Just as we fascinated with that stuff. And I think we hear this a lot with Rise is like, it's like having an accountability buddy. It's the same with fitness. Like if I didn't have my Whoop, I'd be like, I didn't have my Whoop for a month last year, and I measure my health stats every month. This is a great example. And I felt like I was working out roughly the same in that month. And the month after, my body fat percentage was up 4%. It was like there was no way that I was working out as much as I thought I would. And so there's this real big disconnect of, you know, Rise can serve as your own accountability buddy. But with that in mind, like we see this data again, like health data, where it's incredibly empowering if it's shared with you. But you know, I wouldn't want my health data shared with anyone else, right? Or my manager, right? And so that's why we don't want to go down the path of being an employee surveillance tool or anything like that. We do have, for example, we have a Teams tier, but it's really focused. It's just shared on sharing tasks, projects, and clients, which you explicitly share. It's like any of the auto tracking and the health metrics, like we want to make sure that we don't become, yeah, a surveillance tool, because that data is empowering in the right hands, but it's also like can be you know, an invasion of privacy if it's in the wrong hands too.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. No, I can get the positive reinforcement value in the personal data being shared with you, but then as soon as it becomes surveillance
Yeah,
data, that it becomes negative or potentially negative reinforcing. So yeah, and if anybody is who's watching the replay is in like a psychology department at some university and wants to do this, feel free to reach out to Macgill. And I have it in a program right now, and so I will potentially talk to my university. I'm not sure that they are interested in this, but there are other psychology departments and other universities that would be interested in this kind of work, as well as the Institute, the International Association for Time Use Research, which is IATR. They're really the organization that would be uh, really keen on this. So they love this kind of data.
that'd be really cool. Yeah, we'd love to connect with them.
Yeah, I can put you in touch with the folks. They do a wonderful conference every year on time use.
I would
And
love to run with that. That would be really cool. Yeah.
yeah, does anybody have any other questions for Macgill before we start to wrap up here? All right. So with that, Macgill, do you want to give us kind of like maybe some insights into where the future of Rise is going, and maybe we'll close up there?
Yeah, I think we're getting right now a big focus of us. A focus of ours is automatically tagging that work output, like tasks that you've been working on, pulling that out for you, getting that reliability. That's going to be a big and integrations with task trackers and getting deeper integrated into the tools that you all are already working in. That's a big focus of ours. We our goal is just to be fully automated. And we know that if we can actually track that your work output really well, once we do that, we can start helping you plan and make predictions on what you need to get done, which is really areas we're super excited about digging deeper in. I would say, we had this came up in a user interview a few weeks ago, and it's something we've been thinking a lot about is what does a productive day look like in the world of agents, which is what we're moving to. And that's actually one of the things we've been thinking a lot about because, there's we have this concept as well, like focus, like worker mode and manager mode, right? And manager mode is more generally more shallow work. You're assigning tasks, you're chatting with things, and then worker mode is like focus, right? Getting things done. And it's beginning to blur with agents in a way, because I'm a coder, for example. Now I'm talking to Cursor Code, or I'm in a Claude Code, or I'm in Cursor, and I'm you know writing, hey, do this task, and then I go off to ChatGPT and I'm working on a document, do this. And it's interesting because you know what is the right productivity approach in a world where we're essentially working with other intelligent agents, right? And how do you set that up well? Because we don't know the answers to that. I think that's one area in productivity that's changing really rapidly. And I think we have the data in Rise, but we want to make sure we come up with a point of view as well. And I think it's exciting time to be alive. But yeah, it's an area that we're thinking a lot about too.
Yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. I think smart software, I tend to, in my own personal internal language, I just talk about it as smart software as opposed to like AI, because we've had AI for decades. Now we're talking about them because we're capable of talking to them in natural language, and that makes it different. And it will just continue to move forward. But I kind of liken it to having a feature phone, a typical cell phone, to going to smartphones. That's kind
Yeah.
of where we are. The smartphone is still great, but they also chose to put a glass screen on a thing that you hold in your hand, so it's really easy to break. And so you need a screen protector, and you need a case on your phone, or you can kind of go off the rails and not have a case on your phone, but it's dangerous, right? And I think those are all the cases that we need to do with kind of the AI chatbot world. And so I think it's really fascinating to see how you all kind of approach artificial intelligence and really smart algorithms, smart software in all of that. So really appreciate you coming and talking to us, Macgill, and sharing your insights about really time tracking and focus and productivity.